Winter has always punished the hands first. Long before modern insulation, soldiers, farmers and outdoor workers learned the same brutal lesson. Once your fingers lose heat, everything else follows. During World War II, frostbite wasn't an inconvenience, it was a medical emergency. In the winter of 1944, especially during the Battle of the Bulge, frostbite casualties rivaled combat injuries. Men lost fingers, hands, and sometimes their ability to work or fight altogether. The cold didn't just sting. It crept in silently, numbing sensation until damage was already done. Military planners knew this, but they were stuck with a problem that will sound familiar to anyone who gardens through winter. Insulation alone wasn't enough. Wool gloves helped, yes, but once moisture entered the system, warmth collapsed fast. That's where one overlooked trick changed everything. Why traditional gloves failed in real cold? Wool was standard issue for a reason. It insulates even when damp, resists odour and breathes naturally. But in prolonged cold, especially when snow, sweat and freezing wind combine, wool has limits. When moisture saturates the fibres and freezes, the air pockets that trap heat disappear. The glove becomes cold storage wrapped around your fingers. Soldiers digging foxholes, hauling supplies, or handling wet equipment sweated constantly. That sweat froze. Once frozen, circulation slowed, sensation vanished, and frostbite followed. Gardeners experience the same thing today when working winter soil, hauling wet mulch, or pruning in snow. Wet gloves don't fail gradually. They fail suddenly. The forgotten insight that solved the problem. The solution didn't come from laboratories or new materials. It came from understanding one principle. Cold alone doesn't cause frostbite. Moisture does. Veteran soldiers, many from rural or logging backgrounds, already knew this. So did people living in northern climates for generations. If you stop moisture from reaching insulation, insulation works dramatically better. The answer wasn't a better glove, it was a barrier. How a simple vapour barrier saved hands. The secret glove hack was deceptively simple. Soldiers began wearing a thin, waterproof layer between their skin and their thick wool gloves. Often this was a rubberized glove, a chemical handling glove, or even improvised waterproof fabric sewn into shape. It wasn't warm on its own. That wasn't the point. This layer blocked moisture movement. Sweat stayed contained. Snow melt stayed out. The outer wool glove stayed dry and retained its loft. Hands stayed warmer longer, even in brutal conditions. This created a three-layer system that modern outdoor gear still follows today. A thin inner liner, a waterproof vapour barrier, and an insulating outer layer. Why the hack wasn't perfect and how soldiers fixed it. There was a problem, though, and soldiers learned it quickly. A waterproof barrier traps sweat just as effectively as it blocks snow. After heavy work, the inside of that rubber glove could become damp and clammy. If a soldier stopped moving without addressing that moisture, the cold would catch up fast. The real genius wasn't the glove. It was how they used it. Soldiers learned to treat moisture like an enemy that had to be actively managed. During hard work, they wore the vapour barrier to protect insulation. When activity stopped, they removed the barrier and swapped wet liners for dry ones immediately. Dry gloves were guarded like rations. Men carried multiple thin liners, rotating them deliberately. One pair was sacrificed to sweat. Another stayed dry at all costs, often kept inside clothing to stay warm. This system dramatically reduced frostbite cases in units that adopted it. So, you might be wondering why gardeners should care about a World War II glove trick. Well, cold weather gardening really punishes your hands in much the same way combat did, believe it or not. Wet soil, snow-covered tools, condensation, and all that repeated stop-and-go work. These create just the right conditions for numbness and even cold injury. And honestly, thick gloves alone rarely solve the problem. Now, here's the thing. This World War II system translates directly to gardening. You start with a thin liner glove, which absorbs just a bit of sweat. Then you add a simple waterproof layer, even a lightweight rubber glove will do, to block out moisture. Finally, a durable outer glove gives you insulation and protection. And when your work intensity changes, you simply swap out the liners. Always try to keep one pair dry. But, you know, this isn't just about comfort. It's really about maintaining circulation and dexterity, so you can keep working safely out there. Why modern gloves still miss this lesson? You see, many modern winter gloves try to combine everything into one layer. Breathable membranes, insulation, waterproof coatings, all packed together. They work well until they don't. Once moisture overwhelms them, recovery is slow. The World War II system worked because it separated functions. Each layer had a job, and you know, moisture was controlled instead of ignored. That lesson applies far beyond the battlefield. Why this knowledge nearly disappeared? After the war, gear became standardized and, well, simplified. The mindset of active layer management faded. Convenience replaced discipline. But the principle never stopped working. Today, mountaineers and polar explorers still use vapor barrier liners for the same reason soldiers did back in 1944. And, you know, gardeners working winter beds, cold frames and orchards face the same physics. Why this still matters? Cold hands don't just hurt, they slow work, increase mistakes, and, well, cause long-term damage. WWII soldiers didn't survive winter by accident. They learned to manage moisture with intention. That lesson belongs in gardens just as much as it once belonged on battlefields. If this deep dive into a forgotten WWII survival trick gave you something practical to use outdoors, go on and subscribe to The Nature's Fix, and share this with someone who works through winter instead of hiding from it. History doesn't just teach us what happened. Sometimes it quietly teaches us how to keep going.